So the other day I was binge watching YouTube and because I just got really bored, and I ended up running into this guy that you might have heard of, and his name is Beard Meats Food. And for Beard Meats Food, he is, I would say in the simplest terms, crazy because he eats these insane amount of calories from these meals, and he just does it like all the time. He's been doing this for about over 5 to 8 years, and the crazy thing is, which shocked me, is that I thought he would be pretty fat after first seeing this guy. But no, he actually has a pretty lean physique when he has been continuously lean this entire time. And honestly, this is very shocking at first. And I was like, nah, this is not someone I don't believe this guy. But then I saw this other person named Will Tennyson. And you've probably seen this guy before, huge YouTuber. And a lot of his popular videos is him eating crazy amounts of junk food. And like him only eating junk food for 50 hours, him trying the average American diet, him eating like Mikado avocado. If you've never heard of that guy, you need to see that guy, just the crazy amount of food he eats. And the other thing that's crazy is that he is also jacked. Like he is consistently lean and strong and muscular. And then another guy, Alex Hermosi, he eats dessert every time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no matter what he does. And guess what? He's still crazy jacked. Yes, he is on steroids if you do know about him, but except even if he wasn't on steroids, I would still say he would have a decent physique, at least muscular, almost like Will Tennyson. But the thing that I would want to ask you is that how come when you want to eat junk food, you feel like as if you can't do it, and so you restrict yourself from it, or when you leave it in your diet, you actually end up starting to gain weight and you start beating yourself up over it, and then you go down the spiral of feeling absolutely terrible. And I've been in the same boat before, so if you don't know me, my name's Dalton, and I've helped a couple of people in terms of losing weight and keeping it off because I was able to lose 60 pounds, and I want to help you guys do the same and save your time on mistakes. So for this, normally what I've noticed for all these people is that they obviously are masters of dieting. And obviously it's no rocket science. Let's say if I have 3,000 calories a day to maintain my weight or whatever, fill in the blank. And then I have a smaller portion, as you can see with the smaller rectangle, 2,500 calories for that. I would probably lose weight. That is not a surprise. But the thing that what these people do differently is what I would say is their approach to dieting. And for their approach is that they generally have a way more flexible style compared to most people. And normally what happens is that a lot of people want to go on these really restrictive diets, and that might be in a sense of not eating for a few days and then going back to eating, or maybe even doing things such as like carnivore or keto. And for them, they're not used to doing that at all. So they're completely removing certain macronutrients, and they're not factoring in certain vitamins that they need. And then they end up just feeling super hungry, drained out, tired, and therefore they start eating again and back into the junk food. But for these people, they generally have a pretty flexible approach and they understand what works well for them. So for them, what they can do is that I've generally seen 3 approaches that do pretty well overall. So you have the people in general, not just these guys. You generally have what I would like to say is the first option, and that is what a lot of people like to hear, and that is eating clean. And eating clean, what I would just say in this term of context, since there's a lot of definitions, is just eating single whole foods. And yes, this is no surprise, but the thing that they do differently for a lot of these people who are able to get jacked and still eat junk food is that they'll start eating clean, and then as they start losing weight over time, and so like let's say they're losing weight and it's going down, and when they want to go back to maintenance up at the top right here, and then your maintenance, which is just the amount of calories you eat without gaining weight, they'll generally start having more and more junk food. So first they might start off with like 10%, and then maybe 15%, then 25%, and then they might even just keep going and going until they, just want to have whatever feels comfortable for them. So that's generally a decent way of you could diet, and that's obviously nothing wrong with that. But there's another approach which I think is a little bit different, and some people might like this, and I would say it is what I like to call the PJ formula. So PJ formula. And what would you say the PJ formula is? And for me, what it basically is that you are getting the most amount of protein for what you want. And that would, let's say you're getting it from lean meats, you're getting it from dairy, you're trying different things for that. And then you generally choose anything you want after that. So most people, if you decide to do this, is just junk food. So let's say if I have this pie again, and then let's say realistically, for amount of protein that you're getting, I would say which is to your body weight, using the PG formula. So if you weigh, let's say 180 pounds, you just have 180 pounds or 180 grams of protein. And then after that, you can backfill as much as you want on anything. So you can actually have whole foods if you want, or what most people do is that they will end up having junk food just like crazy. And they're still able to lose weight, and they'll just keep going down, down until they feel comfortable while they're losing weight. So the difference here is that you eat clean here, and then you go back to maintenance, then you decide to choose your junk food. Difference here is that as you're losing weight, you still continue to eat junk food. And a lot of people, I would say, would be turned on by this, but they start feeling a little bit like addictive to sugar. Like they don't even want this anymore. They just want to go back to the junk food. And maybe you've had that before. I definitely had that before. But the other one, which I feel like is a more flexible approach between these two, is, I would say, on here, is the macro-friendly style. And what does this mean? So if you ever heard of people like Flexible Diet and Lifestyle, or Noah Parlow, or the Macro Barista, these are big people on social media, and they generally, what they do is that they will basically acknowledge that, hey, you know, I have this many calories throughout the day, and what I could do is that I want to start having, let's say, oh, that's a terrible circle. I have this circle, and this amount of calories I have, and I want to use the best of my ability to still have the protein in, so get as much protein, so maybe like just about this, a little bit less, a little bit more, and then have the same amount of junk food, but except it does not affect my calories more. So instead of just eating as much as possible of my junk food, it is more less calorie dense. And then I'm not feeling guilty, and so I can have all my healthy foods here, and then I have my protein here, and then I have my junk food here. And this is what allows people to also lose weight as well. So these are all approaches that are pretty well, and honestly, the all common denominator that all these people have, regardless of what they do, is that they do a thing which would be called training. So exercise or whatnot. Obviously, you can tell I'm really great at writing here, but they generally do some form of training. And if you want to stay muscular, then obviously having some form of strength training is very important on this, because that allows you to keep your muscle and not just lose weight. You want to lose mainly fat, and this is what strength training helps with a lot. But in terms of this, you can even just do 3 strength training sessions a week, and you would still be able to get significant gains, if not maintain your gains if you're an advanced lifter, and still do any of these approaches and still look really jacked. I've tried this before for all these, and they've all done decently well in terms of what they have. So knowing this now, how can you use this? What approach works best for you? And honestly, I would say you got to understand yourself before you can even start doing this. So let's say if you are a person that naturally binge eats. So let's say in terms of a graph right here, like there's 7 days, and on day 1, you are pretty good. On day 2, you're okay. And then on day 3, you are like, oh wow, I'm bad. And then it just keeps going and going and going and going. And normally this because you haven't developed a consistent schedule yet. And normally for this, some form of consistency, I would say between these two might be the best for you in terms of this. Because if you're eating clean, you're developing a consistent style to where now you might not even be tempted to have junk food or unhealthy foods, I would say. Or you could take a macro-friendly approach to where you just simply have junk food, but you have lesser calories. Because personally for me, when I tried doing this without developing a consistent eating pattern, or at least, you know, mainly focusing on healthier style foods, I ended up going right back to this just straight up overeating. Like even if I did have this amount of protein to keep me full, I would still overeat on junk food. So normally that would be one thing to factor in. But once you develop your relationship with food, most of these things are pretty okay in terms of what you want, because what matters more in terms of all these, doesn't matter if you eat clean, I mean single whole foods, or if you try the PJ formula or doing macro-friendly cooking or macro-friendly eating, that you eat styles of food like ice cream, but except you're not going over on calories. This could be an example of like Halo Top, Gatsby bars, or low calorie Oreos, stuff like that. And then there's countless things you could say, but it all factors back to this. It all factors back to, am I eating less than what I'm having? And obviously this is the main culprit. And so for you as the person watching this, you got to think to yourself, okay, so which one of these make the most sense for me? Am I someone that needs to start developing a healthy eating pattern and something I want to do? Personally, for me, it helped me to start eating clean first. And then on top of that, maybe if you are already more disciplined or have more balance within your food, then having maybe the PJ formula might be better. Or if you want something in between both to not be as hard, maybe going macro-friendly is a little bit better for you. So honestly, all for these things, that is something that is personally helpful for me on this case. And one more thing I want to say on this is that even though they have this part of going from 3 to 25, is also understanding your goals and where you want to be, because a lot of people don't care about how much they weigh, they just care about how much they look. So a lot of people, whether you're like 300 pounds, but you look like an absolute tank, I don't really think you care as much as compared to losing weight if you look like you're 250 and you still look fat. Like most people just care about how they look in terms of when they're on the beach or, whether they're getting pictures or with family. And it all comes down to what I would want to say is, let's say, grace. That is the most important thing anyone could have when doing this, because it doesn't matter if you eat clean, try to do clean eating or these other things. If you keep trying to beat yourself up, have unrealistic goals that you cannot sustain or cannot handle in the long term, then you are surely going to beat yourself up on this. And I personally don't want this to happen to you guys, and for me, which I have had lots of issues doing this, and I did not want you guys to go through the same thing and agony that I went through. But if you do want to go more in depth on either of these, I do have a few videos on these that have personally helped me. So if you guys are interested in checking that out, I do have a video right here that will help you out on one of these types of categories. So make sure you enjoy it, and I'll see you there in a second.